The Holy Grail. According to the New Testament of the Bible, it was the cup that Jesus Christ himself blessed during the Last Supper, but it seemingly vanished with only speculation and fabled tales on where it could be. The Grail was rumored to house secret powers, such as healing, divine enlightenment, infinite abundance, and even the power to bring back the dead. From the Crusaders to modern explorers to even the Nazis, many people have become obsessed with the Grail in hopes of finding this lost relic. It's clear that if someone were to find it, it would be one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of all time. But that leaves us with the question, where exactly can the Holy Grail be found? Well, unfortunately, it's a bit more complicated than just that. There are many ancient fables, myths, and even historical accounts that could lead us to various places around the world. So what I'm trying to say here is we don't actually know, but we do have some pretty good guesses. But before we dive into where it could be located today, first we need to go back to where it all began. In April of 33 AD, in an upper room on Mount Zion, just outside the walls of the old city of Jerusalem, the Last Supper began. From the accounts of Jesus' disciples present at the meal, he was said to bless both the wine and bread. According to Corinthians 1, when Jesus blesses the bread, he says, "This is my body, which is for you. This do in remembrance of me." And when he blessed the wine, he says, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood. This do as often as ye drink it, in remembrance of me." The disciples would then eat the bread and drink the wine, but Jesus has been alluding to something this whole time. During the meal, Jesus predicts that he will be betrayed by one of his apostles who were present at the supper, which will eventually lead to his death. He also foretells that before the next morning, another disciple will deny even knowing him. Leonardo da Vinci's painting of the Last Supper famously captures this exact moment in history. After the meal, Jesus' predictions would come true. He would be betrayed by his disciple Judas Iscariot and arrested. His other disciple Peter would deny knowing him to avoid persecution. Soon after, Jesus would be tried in court and then crucified. But that brings us to the cup, or grail, that Jesus blessed during the Last Supper. The grail became a symbol of love, sacrifice, and the idea that everyone can be forgiven and start fresh. It's a reminder of Jesus' message to take care of one another and to remember the sacrifices made out of love, just like the sacrifice he made while being crucified. While the specific term, Holy Grail, does not appear in biblical texts, the cup was referenced in multiple accounts from the disciples that were there, and it was clear that it was important. For example, in Luke 22:20, he says, "In the same way, after the supper, he took the cup, saying, 'This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you.'" But what happened to the cup after the supper? According to legend, Joseph of Arimathea, a disciple of Jesus, used the cup to collect his blood at the crucifixion, imbuing it with sacred significance as a relic of divine grace and redemption. This association with Christ's sacrifice imbued the cup with profound religious symbolism, representing the quest for spiritual purity and eternal salvation. This part is just a legend, so it's unclear if that is what actually happened. But nonetheless, the grail vanished after Jesus' crucifixion. It would be mostly forgotten, at least for now. It would be more than 1,000 years until the Grail would be brought to the attention of the masses. The earliest references that use the term Holy Grail can be traced back to medieval literature, particularly the Arthurian legends popularized by French poet Chrétien de Troyes in the 12th century. Chrétien's work describes the Grail as a mysterious object associated with mystical properties and divine power. Succeeding writers, including Wolfram and Sir Thomas Malory, further elaborated on the Grail's significance, weaving complex narratives of chivalry, adventure, and spiritual enlightenment. In these Arthurian tales, the quest to find the Grail is usually undertaken by the Knights of the Round Table, with Sir Galahad, Sir Percival, and Sir Bors. The Grail was said to possess magical powers, offering healing, sustenance, and eternal youth or happiness to those who were pure of heart and purpose. The Grail was said to be located in the Grail Castle, overseen by the Fisher King. The castle is a mysterious, difficult-to-reach place that appears to those destined to find it. In Chrétien de Troyes' unfinished poem, Percival, the Story of the Grail, Percival is portrayed as a naive young man who, after being knighted, embarks on a quest that eventually leads him to the Grail Castle. However, due to his failure to ask the right questions, he misses the opportunity to heal the Fisher King and secure the Grail. Later, the legend evolves to include Galahad, introduced as the purest and noblest knight who achieves the Grail quest. Galahad's purity allows him to heal the Fisher King and achieve the Grail, symbolizing the achievement of spiritual perfection. Other knights, like Bors and Lancelot, also partake in the quest. Bors succeeds in part due to his purity and faith, while Lancelot, despite his bravery and prowess, fails due to his adulterous love for Queen Guinevere, which renders him unworthy. Although these are just myths that made the concept of the Holy Grail popular, which captivated the attention of treasure hunters and religious historians around the world. So as of right now, we know that the cup Jesus used in the Last Supper was a real thing, but we just don't know exactly what happened to it after. There's a chance that it was destroyed at some point in history, but for this video, we'll be assuming that the Grail survived. Some Arthurian legends suggest the Grail was brought to Britain by Joseph of Arimathea. The story suggests that after Jesus' death, Joseph of Arimathea used the Grail to catch and collect Christ's blood as it flowed from his side, pierced by a Roman soldier's lance. This act of collecting the blood in the cup is what is believed to have imbued the Grail with its profound religious symbolism and power, representing not just the quest for spiritual purity, but also offering the promise of eternal salvation to those who sought it. Joseph was a wealthy disciple of Jesus who, according to the Bible, provided his own tomb for Jesus' burial after the crucifixion. He also felt the need to protect the Grail, so he embarked on a journey to hide it. The legend further states that Joseph, along with a small group of followers, brought the Holy Grail to Britain. This journey is said to have occurred after the crucifixion, with Joseph seeking a safe haven for the Grail away from the Holy Land. Joseph is frequently associated with Glastonbury in Somerset, England. One of the most famous legends suggests that Joseph thrust his staff into the ground at Wirial Hill, near Glastonbury, which miraculously flowered into Glastonbury thorn, a type of hawthorn that blooms twice a year, which was an event that was said to mark the beginning of Christian presence in Britain. Joseph is said to have also founded the first Christian oratory at Glastonbury, laying the foundations for what would later become Glastonbury Abbey. The arrival of Joseph and the Holy Grail in Britain is often cited as a foundational myth for British Christianity, symbolizing the country's deep and ancient Christian roots. It also ties Britain to the Arthurian legend, as the quest for the Holy Grail becomes a central theme in the stories of King Arthur and his knights. So if the Grail was taken by Joseph, there's a good chance it was hidden in Britain somewhere, probably close to Glastonbury. Even though Joseph was one of Jesus' closest disciples, some legends about his involvement with the Grail can be associated with the speculation from medieval poets. Because of this, it's unsure whether these legends are true or not. The idea that the Holy Grail can be hidden in Montségur is a captivating theory that combines historical events with legends. Montségur is a fortified castle in the French Pyrenees, a medieval Christian sect that was deemed heretical by the Roman Catholic Church. The Montségur castle is best known for its siege in 1244, when the Cathars stronghold fell to French royal forces after a lengthy siege, leading to the execution of over 200 Cathar religious leaders who refused to renounce their faith. The Cathars were rumored to possess a great treasure, which has been speculated by some to include the Holy Grail or a similar significant religious relic. The siege and subsequent fall of Montségur are often cited as a key moment in the loss of Cathar influence and the loss of their supposed treasures. Some legends and speculative theories suggest the Cathars might have protected the Holy Grail and that it was hidden in Montségur or taken from the castle and hidden before its fall. The idea is that the Cathars, being seen as guardians of a pure form of Christianity, would have been entrusted with the Grail's protection. In the 1930s, Otto Rahn, a German medievalist and writer, became obsessed with the idea that the Holy Grail was protected by the Cathars. He documented the theories in his books Crusade Against the Grail and Lucifer's Court, where he proposed that the legends of the Holy Grail were linked to the Cathars and their supposed treasure hidden in the Languedoc region of France. His work caught the attention of Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, who was deeply interested in occult and mystical subjects, believing that they could serve to strengthen the Nazi narrative. Himmler was intrigued by Rahn's theories, linking the Grail to an ancient pure Aryan past. In 1936, Rahn joined the SS as a junior non-commissioned officer, where he was given endless resources to continue his search for the Grail. Rahn conducted extensive fieldwork in the Pyrenees, exploring caves and castles that could have been connected to the Cathars, and by extension, to the Grail legends. Although he was supposedly never able to find it, shortly after his failed searches, he died under mysterious circumstances in the Austrian mountains, which was officially ruled as a suicide. Even though there is no concrete proof of the Grail being held there, the theory that the Cathars had hidden the Grail somewhere is still one of the most prominent to this day. The next possible location the Holy Grail could be hidden is in the Vatican archives. It's a popular speculation fueled by the mystery and intrigue surrounding the Grail and the Vatican's vast and private collection of documents. The Vatican secret archives house millions of documents, books, and artifacts accumulated over centuries, including papal correspondence, state papers, and other historical records related to the Catholic Church's history. The Vatican archives have been historically off-limits to the general public, with only qualified scholars allowed limited access. This secrecy has contributed to speculation about what might be contained within its walls, including potentially sacred relics, like the Holy Grail. The archives contain documents spanning over 12 centuries, suggesting that if the Church ever came into possession of the Grail, this would be a likely place to store it for safekeeping and secrecy. The Catholic Church has been a central figure in the Grail legend, particularly through the medieval tales of the Crusades. The Church's historical power and influence make it a plausible entity to have acquired and hidden such a relic. However, there is no concrete evidence or credible historical documentation to suggest that the Holy Grail is or ever has been in the possession of the Vatican. On top of this, in recent years, the Vatican has made efforts to increase the transparency of its archives, allowing more scholars to access its documents. The Temple Mount in Jerusalem is another place where the Grail could have been located. It's one of the most sacred sites in religious history, significant to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. It is the location of the first and second Jewish temples, the latter of which was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. It's so significant that the Knights Templar, a medieval Christian military order, are named after the Temple Mount. For the Templars, the Crusades of the Holy Land from 1095 to 1291 would have been a prime opportunity for them to discover religious relics, including the Grail. There is historical evidence that the Templars were stationed at the Temple Mount early in their history, and some legends suggest that they found and kept various relics, possibly including the Holy Grail. If they didn't find it from the Temple Mount, it's possible they could have found it during one of the many sieges and destroyed any written evidence that it was there, so they could hide it in a secure location. If this is true, then they could have transported the Grail elsewhere, and there are a few different places that historians have theorized. The first one is Rosslyn Chapel, located near Edinburgh, Scotland, which is often associated with Templar legends and the Holy Grail due to its intricate and simple lead and stone carvings. Some believe that the Templars, or their successors, the Freemasons, hid the Grail there. Another possible location could be the ancient city of Antioch, which was one of the wealthiest cities of the ancient Greco-Roman world and an early center for Christianity. Antioch was a pivotal siege and battle during the First Crusade. It was here that the Holy Lance, which claimed to be the spear that pierced Jesus' side at the crucifixion, was discovered by the Crusader Peter Bartholomew under the floor of St. Peter's Cathedral in Antioch. The discovery of the Holy Lance has led some to speculate that other Christian relics, such as the Holy Grail, could also have been hidden or found in the city. One of the last speculated locations in the Languedoc region, which is actually associated with the Cathars and the Albigensian Crusade, and is rich in Templar history and legends. Some theories suggest that the Grail could have been hidden somewhere in the vast caves of the Pyrenees, or in the ruins of Montségur Castle, where the last Cathars made their stand. The area's history of religious conflict and mystery makes it a prime candidate for Grail legends. When the Templars were disbanded in the early 14th century, many were arrested, tried, and executed on the charges of heresy and other crimes in a process driven by King Philip IV of France. Some conspiracy theories suggest that the real reason behind their downfall was the possession of powerful relics like the Holy Grail, which they were accused of secretly worshipping. Although there was no concrete evidence that the Crusaders ever found the Grail, it was all rumors, speculation, and intrigue. One theory claims that the Grail is actually already found and is currently kept at the Cathedral of St. Mary in Valencia, Spain. A chalice is kept there that has been traced back to the Middle East and dated around the era of Jesus. According to tradition and word of mouth, it is said that the chalice was taken to Rome by St. Peter, the first pope, and used by early popes to celebrate the Eucharist. According to legend, in the 3rd century, as the Roman Empire persecuted Christians, St. Lawrence, the deacon of Rome, sent the chalice to his parents in Huesca, Spain, for safekeeping. Over the centuries, the chalice came under the protection of various kings. It was moved several times for safety. Its history during the medieval period is better documented, with records indicating its respected status and its movement among different religious sites in Spain. Although there is no way to know for sure, it is recognized by the Roman Catholic Church as the official Holy Grail. Although, I will say, there is no concrete evidence that directly ties the chalice to Jesus in the Last Supper. The connection is based on tradition and historical documentation that spans centuries, with gaps that leave room for speculation. Along with this, there are several other relics found around the world claimed to be the Holy Grail, each with its own set of traditions and historical backing. So it's unclear that if the Grail has actually been found or not, and there's no realistic way to tell if it has. Do you think the Grail is still out there? Which theory appears to be the most plausible? Comment below.